sure she's good?
Yeah.
What's that? You're not sure?
I mean, she's crying.
Going live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Side, y'all, under the Believe Podcast Network. This show is indeed a podcast about Black science fiction and fantasy and staying on the same page as a family. We are joined by everybody today. Gucci's in and out of this room. Wild is right here. Ben is right here. And today is our very last recording in our Chicago home. We're getting on the road to go to Cali on tomorrow. So this is a very just hand to heart episode, but we're still talking about the magic of Black science fiction and fantasy. So today for episode 104, we'll be discussing the gig economy, wokeness, and talking garbage cans as we watched Woke Season 1, which was created by Keith Knight. So we're going to talk about this show that we really enjoyed. But before we do that, we're going to shout out the people who are literally the reason we are able to move across the country to pursue our actor dreams, our content creator dreams, our, daily day in the life content, but we get paid to do that. These people are the patrons, AKA the Country Club. Truly, without y'all, we would not be making this move, y'all. We cannot thank y'all enough for just supporting our content, and it literally is only going to get better from here. Quick shout out to Julia Cooper, Jenny, Penny O, Talia, Taya Walker, Caitlin Marsica, y'all know my heart, Jala Carson, Amy, Stephanie Bender, India Johnson, Ben. Woke didn't get the best reviews. Talk to me a little bit about that, because we were a little bit, reluctant to start the show. And per usual, we were pleasantly surprised. So talk to me about these reviews that weren't that great.
Oh, well, I was reading reviews and people are saying I couldn't get past the first episode. And immediately I started to think about the most embarrassing thing that I experience is when I talk about things I know nothing about and then I discover that I know nothing about them. That is so embarrassing for me. And so it just baffles me that someone would watch one episode of something and make all these judgments. There was a major fallout, like a serious fallout of real reviewers reviewing the TV show The Witcher.
Okay.
And they'd only watch like 3-4 episodes, which is sort of a standard. And I found out in that whole situation that a lot of reviewers don't watch a full season. And I think now in television, because we are no longer doing episodic structures, we're looking more at entire story arcs within a season. You got to watch the whole thing. So I don't know. It just made me really upset.
I will say that I agree with you that you should watch an entire season or of something, or you should read the entire book before you review it. I will agree with you there. What I don't like to do, sometimes I hate when people say to me, you should check out this show. It really picks up episode 4. It's a slow burn, but episode 7 will change your mind. I think it is, and I know that I'm not the only one. I'm a victim of the times right now where we can just get on TikTok and have the slot machine go, 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 go. So it is really hard, I guess, for writers to compel me with everything that they got going in the pilot. But it is frustrating for me when I was on the plane once and I watched like 3 episodes of Succession, and I was like, this is just this is a slow burn that I'm not really fully.
Succession.
I know, drag me.
People love that show.
People love that show, but everybody I've talked to, I'm like, God, I was snoozing away the first 3 episodes, and they're like, no, you gotta. It really picks up in season 3, and it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that.
After
I have
20
a baby,
hours of watching.
I have a baby. I have 2 babies, including my husband, 3 if you include Gucci. It is really hard for me to even carve out the time to sit down and even watch a show. So I literally do not have time for something to pop off in season 3 when there is so much good television on TV right now. And I will admit sometimes a show will. It doesn't have to do everything for me. It doesn't have to make me laugh, make me cry, do everything in the pilot. But there's got to be a level of intrigue there that keeps me watching. But that's also, I'm a millennial. I'm on all of the apps. So that might be a problem with that. But you're somebody who will still watch a full season of something and then call it quits, right?
Yes, I will. But my problem is not what you're doing, which is, self-reflecting on what you're going to watch or editing what you're going to watch. My problem is someone writing a full ass review,
Correct,
publishing it, and not understanding the full context. If I'm going to come for something and be negative about it, I'm going to read that whole fucking book. I'm going to watch that whole TV show. Oh yeah, you can't.
Tell me cussing around my baby.
Amber.
If you're watching the YouTube, you'll see I just made a face with Ben. Well, quick sidebar. Wild is learning very quickly, and I just don't want her first word to be a cussing word.
Absolutely
Kill
not.
me. I don't.
I don't swear that much anyway. So my thing, though, I want to come back to this embarrassing question where I am truly, truly embarrassed, incredibly embarrassed when I talk about something that I don't know. So I was just curious, what makes you really embarrassed? That's what I want to talk about. What makes you embarrassed?
I get embarrassed when you talk about things you don't know.
Oh, so I'm the root cause of your embarrassment. There's nothing that you do on your own. I guess it does come back to you chose to be with me. So therefore you are the cause of my own embarrassment. Your embarrassment on me.
I guess I get embarrassed when people don't understand my sense of humor, and it's IRL. Like I've grown accustomed to people online not understanding my humor, but when I make a little zinger in person and they're like, I'm like, oh, I thought I was a comedian.
That's some
I'm
public
not.
school shit.
Even though comedy is very subjective and people have different kinds of comedy, obviously it's still, when I can't get a good laugh IRL or something didn't land.
So your sense of
that
worth
way.
comes externally. Like if someone does not laugh at you, you do not feel.
Especially if I set up a joke and it just didn't hit. And sometimes it's I do a lot of like references in the comedy that I do. Like I make tons of like Flavor Flav jokes or like the Precious, which thank you everybody who corrected me. It is Lee Daniels who directed Precious, my bad, from last week. But I definitely get embarrassed when people don't recognize when I'm making a joke based on my delivery, because I pride myself on being able to do that.
I remember one time you did a whole bit about Maya Angelou, and people didn't really understand that bit. But I think something that you've had to learn though is that you are not the reason why they didn't get the joke.
Yes, or
they
sometimes
are the reason.
Yeah, or sometimes it's a little bit too niche. One time so you had to create this original monologue, an original comedic monologue for this audition. So I basically did a bit where I'm saying like, here's Maya Angelou's here's Maya Angelou's Tinder profile. So you would have to, one, understand like Maya Angelou's cadence and tone. That's the one funny. And then secondly, you would have to understand how people communicate on Tinder when they're being a little bit pretentious. Like I have a cockapoo, like a cocker spaniel and a poodle dog, or Myers-Briggs, ENFT. I did this like.
Wait, cockapoo's your example of pretentiousness? Wow.
Yeah, you know how people will show like, oh, I have this like
Special-
super cute hybrid dog.
Special breed dogs.
Yeah, and I know my
inherently
Myers-Briggs. Yeah. So I did Maya Angelou basically on Tinder, and it did not land at this thing. I think one person in the audience was like, ha! But everybody else in the room was like, I'm not understanding what she's doing. To preface, I set up...
It was a room full of whites.
It was a room full of older whites as well. So that doesn't mean I'm not funny. I did not know my crowd. But to be fair, the thing I was auditioning for was a diversity fellowship. So
they should.
So who's
the
loser,
known.
me or you? That's Mulan.
You're about to go get your vitals checked. I do not. We're getting term insurance because we're going to go on a really long road trip. So if anything were terribly to happen to us, we have insurance to cover, you know, that. But they
only want
you.
me to go to an appointment, and they got both Ben and I stats and said like, well, that fat bitch is going to cost us a lot of money to insure. So let's see in person if she lied about her weight and whatever.
I thought it was more like a racist thing.
It might be. You never know with me.
Like
it could be race. It could be
woman,
gender.
Yeah.
It could be belly.
Just so many ways to oppress you.
Oh, we're in the stage where Wild is learning how to use her head and her hands, which is really fun for my face. We want to thank all of you out there for constantly running your asses on down to the Apple Podcast to share the good news of the Sci-Fi Sci podcast. And we have a really great review here. I'm not even gonna cry because I got so much going on in life right now that I cannot add more tears to this week. It's been like a gratitude tears kind of week, but tears nonetheless. Anyway, this one says, representing in reviews, LOVE. Vulnerability is a sign of strength, and sharing your lives, insights, and experiences online requires just that. So I really want to say thank you to Amber, Ben, Wiggles, Gucci, and even Amber's parents for sharing so much joy, laughter, and honesty with us. I appreciate you all as individual humans and as the beautiful, loving, and hilarious family unit you've built. The fact that you've also created a podcast to highlight, center, and celebrate so many Black creators is a thing of beauty. As governments continue to restrict what... Wow, you don't think that's a thing of beauty? Wadisha, we love you. As governments continue to restrict what kind of education is found in our schools and communities, I'm thankful for people who are creating resources beyond all of that. Thank you all for being you. I've got a lot of admiration, appreciation, and love for you. P.S. I think a lot of others can relate to this, but in my mind, you're my newest friends. Thank you so much, representing in reviews. I want to say this also. In addition to that, 1, please keep those Apple Podcast ratings coming. We really love to see it. 2, my new favorite thing to do is to have a drink at a bar and then go up to someone and talk about race relations, especially if it's a white person. And then immediately out of nowhere on the spot, I say to them, okay, so name 5 Black authors, go. Somebody's sleepy.
I'm going to go put her down.
Okay. Wild needs a nap. Thank y'all for bearing with us. This is the part that we sometimes don't want to see. One time, somebody on the internet came at me. They're like, why do you always turn the camera off when Wild starts crying? It's like, because I'm consoling her. They were like, we want to see the tears too. I was like, I'm caring for the child real time. That's why the camera's off, because my hands are being held with this person. But back to my original point. If I one day see you at a bar, I'm going to take a shot of Casamigos, and then I'm going to ask you, name 5 Black authors, go. And I'm hoping, because of this incredible podcast, that you're able right away to be like Octavia Butler, N.K. Jemisin, Zen Rocklin, Nettie Ejiofor, Victor Laval, Cherie Renee Thomas. I'm hoping you're able to just name them off the bat, because I remember I did that to somebody the other day, and then the minute they asked me to fire back, I named obviously all like Black writers and authors in sci-fi and fantasy. So Ben, can you name a new 5? Ben, can you name a new 5 right now? You're racist. Go. Name 5 authors. Go.
Cadwell Turnbull.
Yes.
Nalo Hopkinson.
Period.
Aaron McGruder.
Ooh.
Kwanzaa Sajafo.
Are we going to count Aaron McGruder as an author?
Yes.
What did he write? Oh, he wrote
Birth of a Nation.
I would count him as like a creator for sure, but it doesn't matter. Keep going.
He's a comic artist.
He did the Boondocks, which we love.
Ta-Nehisi Coates. He did the Black Panther run.
Colson Whitehead.
Nisi Shaw.
Great. Yes. Oh, our baby. Y'all, we do this thing where we lay her down
Violet Allen.
for a nap. Who?
Violet Allen. You need to read her work. She's amazing. She wrote a book called The Venus Effect, a short story. It's
okay,
amazing.
Cool. I mean, we have so many because of this podcast. So
we're just not. I'm just not a racist.
Jimmy Baldwin. Done.
I am 100% woke.
And there's all of the Samantha Irby, Roxane Gay. Like, we could go on and on about the people that I was reading before this. Toni Morrison, the Queen Mother. But yes, if you see me out in these streets, Okorafor. I'm so sorry, Nettie. If you see me out in these streets, I'm going to shake your hand. And if you say you listen to our podcast, I'm going to say name 5 authors, go. And so have that 5 ready to go. Yep.
But actually, no.
And if you can't do it, you racist as fuck.
But there are some people who struggle with memory and recall. Like, that is a real thing.
Know this. You're doing the TikTok thing where it's like, that was not the intention. Like, well, some people are nonverbal. So what are you going to do about that? You know what I mean.
Read, buy their book. You know what? Don't even read them. Just buy their book, because that means they get paid.
Great, but you still kind of probably need to know the name of the author. You should
also read them too.
Anyway, what did we watch, Ben?
All right, so we watched Woke, which is based off of the work of Keith Knight, who's a comic artist, and it follows the story of Keith Knight, who's an up-and-coming San Franciscan comic artist, who's sort of like light and cutesy comic strip. Toast and Butter is about to be syndicated in newspapers around the country.
Right.
After a traumatic experience with the police, Keith reaches a new step in his racial puberty, to borrow a phrase from Ibrahim Kendi.
Another black author.
Yep, calling out the racism in his city. So the show covers the fallout of his new wokeness. So our baby is crying like a motherfucker.
Yeah. Let's pause real quick. We're going to have to bring back commercial breaks just for Wiggles and her naps. But Wild is now asleep, so we can continue this conversation. So yes, we watched Woke, starring Lamorne Morris, who I think is kind of low-key like the second coming of Eddie Murphy, even though Eddie Murphy's not dead. But I really, his flair and his facial reactions and his smiles kind of remind me of early Edward Murphy. So yeah, the cast is Lamorne Morris, T. Murph, Blake Anderson, Sashir Zamata, JB Smoove, Nicole Byer, Jack McBrayer, some of the voice actor, Cree Summer, I told you, Cedric the Entertainer, like just dripping with incredible comedians who, Keith David, icon.
Especially in nerddom.
Incredible voice actors, incredible comedians. So let's jump right in, because we were laughing like crazy watching this show.
Well, yeah. So the theme is around wokeness. So I just want to start with what makes someone woke in your opinion?
I think if someone recognizes in almost everything that they do the injustices everywhere and in every experience that they have.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. You hit the nail on the head. There's this idea of that wokeness sees injustice in every single place, in a way that there's a level of wokeness where you see it and then you talk about it and then you pretend as if you are the only one who knows about it. So
yes, that's what's annoying.
There's a negative connotation to wokeness, but I think this show is trying to find that balance, right? Where oftentimes I think the show is making the statement where wokeness is a way of almost hiding the pain that you have not dealt with. In this case, Keith Knight has been attacked in this dramatic situation. He's been tackled to the ground for a mistaken identity, tall black man or whatever.
Yes.
And then he's just like taken out of handcuffs and let go.
And then there's very traumatic, like what he felt or what they portrayed as almost like a near-death experience.
Yeah.
Like, you flash back to like images of your life and it's happening so fast and the adrenaline's going. So he probably thought he was about to die.
Yeah.
And this was a mistaken identity. And then the cops just get off of him. I'm repeating what you just said, but
yeah,
I feel like I needed to.
Yeah, no, totally fine. And so they get off him and then he starts seeing like inanimate objects come alive and they're telling him to do things. So one example, he walks into a barber shop that has all black art and all black haircuts, but it's all white men in the barber shop.
Fully
and it's
gentrified.
Very, very funny. And then he has a talking garbage can, which at first you're like, is this means he's emotionally unstable? Is he suffering from some sort of mental illness? But at some point, these inanimate objects are giving him information that he should not know. Right? Like when he watches the antique dealer and he sees a stolen artifact and the artifact comes alive on TV and starts telling him how the artifact got there. There's no way Keith Knight should actually know that. Right. And so he's getting this sort of secret information. And there's a show called Happy where there's a man who has this little like bunny played by like Patton Oswalt, telling a cop how to find his kidnapped daughter. And you're like, wait, is the cop sort of hallucinating? But we find out, no, this is actually a real thing. So there's actual
that's the
fantasy.
fantastical part of the show. Yes.
Yeah, is that these inanimate objects come alive.
Which I'm not going to lie is kind of the worst part for me. Like, it's funny up until a point. I mean, I obviously have thoroughly enjoyed like watching sci-fi and doing fantasy with Ben, but sometimes like when one or two of the talking pen is going on and on, I'm like, okay, we get it. Let's move back to the real people. I don't know. Some of them are funny and fun, but then it's just like 2 bottles of 40s talking. It's like, drink me. I'm like, all right. I get it.
They called it the black man's medicine.
Yeah. So, it's cute, but sometimes I'm kind of like, so I feel like there were one or two episodes that didn't have any of those interactions, and I'm just gonna say I enjoyed those episodes more. And but I do like that this show does have a fantastical element because I might not have seen it otherwise. But those are my least favorite parts of the show, if I'm being honest.
I think every episode had a small interaction, even if it was tiny, right? So each episode has something come alive, even if it's him just on a bus and a bus ad comes alive. So I guess my question is, what is added to the show with his fantastical element? Like, what makes it? Yeah, essentially what adds it to the show. And one, you're creating mixed media. So there's animation that you get to see, which is very funny. But also something that made me think is that when the Colt 45 starts to talk, in our like highly materialistic culture, materials almost have a voice in and of themselves. Like,
absolutely.
That
I can appreciate that woke commentary that you just gave. Yes.
Like Sprite was the black people's drink.
Right.
Like Colt 45 is like stoop, on with a
for all its negativity. I guess when you do see a Colt 45, you think like black person. Yeah.
Yeah. So because we hyper racialize everything.
A pen can be black versus white.
Dude, even the trash can talking, like even the luxury to have your own fucking trash can, to have your own recycling. There is a level of luxury in that. And you think, like, what do you mean? No, I'm serious. We had a friend recently be like, our trash cans got stolen and it took us 8 weeks to get a new trash can from the city of Chicago. Yeah. And it baffles me. In Georgia, you literally have to pay money to recycle.
Yeah, you cannot really find readily accessible recycling bins. But when we go to California, like everything has like compost, recycling, trash bin. Yeah.
So I think that's sort of what's added to it. But you're right. I think the most entertaining part is that there's
the dialogue.
The dialogue, especially between the roommates. And you have like... A big theme of this is the gig economy. Yes. Where people just do one thing or another. And Amber, you are part of the gig economy.
I'm still a part of the gig economy. What you talking about? Very much so. It's like
yoga gigs.
Let me teach some yoga on the side. If somebody needs a voiceover here, let me keep submitting auditions for that. Let me do a self-tape here. Oh, do you need me to edit something for you in Final Cut Pro, which is a little bit more, polished and cleaner? Sure, I can do that. But I'm definitely heavy in the gig economy.
And so the show sort of follows these three roommates, Keith Knight being the primary one, and none of them really have a job.
Yeah,
They're like in their mid-30s. And I'm thinking throughout television history, we've never really seen like these older people like all living together as roommates, but that is what we're coming to because of the lack of jobs, because of our inability to buy a house and mortgage rates being like 6% interest. People are living with roommates until their 40s, right?
Yes, it's very millennial in that way too. Like I am somebody who is a huge fan still to this day of Broad City, and so I think this show perfectly fits on Hulu because it is very like every day it's shenanigans with us. I just got paper served for this thing, so let me go drive Uber for a little while. And in one part of the show, he basically creates this. Like air quote business where you can rent black people because he found himself attending a party he was paid to go to so that the party would look more diverse. And obviously he's like, oh, more of this, like whatever gets us paid, like you're going to use us and be racist anyway. We might as well get paid. But he ends up creating like black people for rent, which then becomes obviously like super racist. And his roommate's like, is this human trafficking? Like, what are you doing right now?
Yeah. So, and to that point, sort of a little plot point. So he loses his syndication of this very popular comic strip that he's been writing. And so now he's like, okay, now I have to do something that says like art, that says meaning, right? And so he creates what you said. And each episode is him sort of dealing with him trying to be an artist, but also do something ethically, right?
Yes. He's really trying, but he keeps finding himself like trying to be woke, but then he's like got this white girlfriend who's pretty awesome, and then he's like trying to be woke, but his art isn't his art drew this white girl he was dating, and now he's at this like very black, like dark noir event getting his art critiqued. So I love that he keeps
like
finding
colors in
himself
his
in
white
shenanigans.
girlfriend to make her black, so he seems more woke.
But then it's like a commentary on toxic masculinity. Like I love shows like this. I love like random absurdity and a character's real world just being completely heightened. Yeah, some of the parts with the animation was a little bit corny, but I thoroughly enjoyed the show. We were laughing so hard at the dialogue. I think that's really what kept us coming back. And it's such an easy watch as well.
One thing I really appreciate this show doing is that you have T. Murph, who plays one of the roommates, and he sort of cyber stalks this woman, Ayanna, who's an editor at a newspaper that is publishing Keith Knight's material.
Yes.
And he cyber stalks her in sort of like a friendly, goofy way, but she's like, no, like, that's not cool, dude. And I think like he learns from it, and I think there's this level of
he got her like she's like a sneakerhead, and he's kind of like a sneaker dealer.
He's running the gig economy of dealing sneakers.
Well, it's kind of weird. I mean, Ben and I have had debates about this, and obviously Ben treads a lot more lightly because he is a man, and a lot of things can be misconstrued as like, oh, you're really interested in this person or being creepy. But I definitely think, and I'm probably gonna get heat from this, but I definitely think that there's a blurry line sometimes between shooting your shot and doing your research and stalking. Like it can get a little bit gray sometimes. Like I can appreciate if a person saw something random on my Instagram and was like, oh, she's really into yoga. Like maybe on our first date, I'll take her to this yoga class and it'll be by this black teacher. Like I don't know. In my brain, I wouldn't be like, so you fully stalked me and knew that I like to do this thing. Like it's a little bit hard to call it stalking if I have like a very public Instagram and you were just trying to find an interest similar to mine.
Right. So this situation, though, is that T. Murph interacts with Ayanna for very Clovis, right? Clovis is
Clovis
his name.
Is his name,
interacts with Ayanna, and Ayanna gives him no indication that she's interested.
Correct.
And
yes.
then
that's where the line is like drawn.
Right. And then Clovis shows up to one of her favorite bars because he's been stalking her Instagram, and she calls him out on it, and he sort of internalizes that.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
And then he finds out that Ayanna is gay, and then he's like, "Oh, so it's not me. It's like you're gay." She's like, "No.
It's still you.
It's still you." And
but then they have a beautiful friendship after it. That's why I kind of like enjoy. I don't like that he stalked her, and obviously I think we all know like, oh, this person's not being friendly. They might not take no for an answer, and he took it very lighthearted. But I've definitely been pursued by someone in the past, and I'm like, oh, I can tell they watched like one or two things, and I didn't think it was that weird.
Right.
But if they like one day just showed up on my block, and I was like, what are you?
Well,
here?
Ayanna makes it very clear that like
she is
I'm
not
interested.
Got it.
And he still pursues her.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And this is the first time where it's like, hey, instead of just canceling this person and being like, you're an asshole, you should be arrested and thrown in jail. Like what he does is not a arrestable, offense. It's not, but it is stalking, and it is scary.
Yeah.
Right.
You're correct.
So, and the fact that they approach this in sort of a more nuanced way, and being like, hey, people who do this are coming from a cultural understanding that, oh, I can just, pursue a woman because that's what they want. And she's like, no,
that's not cool.
No, like I need to re-educate you. And so it actually deals with, and this is where the show is very funny. And I don't think they're like, we're going to make a show about a man
stalking,
being re-educated, and we're going to have this whole statement. They're like, no, we're ultimately making a show to be funny. But there's these little like grace notes of thought-provokingness, and that I very much appreciated.
Yes. The line is drawn when someone's like, I'm uncomfortable with what you are doing, please stop. And then somebody's like, well, why do I have to stop? Like, that's when it's like, okay, you are fully stalking and harassing.
And Clovis asks that, and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you why, even though I don't have to.
Right.
And then later they end up developing sort of a friendship, and it's actually almost endearing, and T. Murph is like, sort of has to step back, and there's a lot of moments like that in the show.
The show is the most entertaining because of the dynamic between the roommates. Like I'm zero interested in Keith Knight's love interest in the show, his black girlfriend or his white girlfriend. I don't care about that. The interaction and the comedy between Blake Anderson, T. Murph, and Lamorne Morris it just tops. It's good writing, it's quick comedy, and I love them as a trifecta together. I would love to go see them in an improv set. They really work well for me. I think they are the magic of this show.
They're just very sharp.
Like, remember that time, like,
and they all have bits. Like Blake Anderson is trying to make an energy drink. Blake Anderson's character is
Gunther.
Gunther is trying to make an energy drink, but it's basically just cocaine.
In drink form, yes. And then at one point, like, these two people find him at a party and they're trying to have this male and woman are trying to have a threesome with him. And he's like, I mean, I got to be more open-minded. Like, I'm pretty basic sexually. And I'm just like, this is why I'm watching this show time and time again. I love all of those interactions. And Lamorne Morris also has a lot of moments in the show where he basically just like flips out on everybody. There's this really fun scene where
he gets triggered.
He gets triggered. I'm sorry that I'm calling it fun. It's like, there's this so fun where he just snaps at everybody. Yeah, he fully gets triggered and basically just has these outbursts that keep just heightening, that keep getting him in trouble. So the first outburst like got him fired from his job, and then he had another outburst and that one went viral, and then it was like, cancel this man. And then the third outburst, he's like really upset that like all of these people are caring more about this koala bear that has been shot and killed than a black man. So obviously he's...
Slight correction, it was choked to death.
Oh,
the koala bear was choked.
You're doing it right now. The whites are caring more about the mistreatment of this animal, but nobody said anything when he was being attacked. So and it is infuriating, and obviously we, the audience, are rooting for Keith Knight, Lamorne Morris, but it really works for me, and we are going to continue watching this show because it's funny. I hate that people dragged it after a couple of episodes. If you're not into the fantasy element, like, that's corny or whatever, but it's the same tone of when Atlanta decides to do some magical realism elements, and it's still Dave, like enjoyable. Yes, Dave as well. It doesn't take away from the like genuine good writing and the strong actors in it. I'm here for
Jesus as well.
Yeah. Like shit can be corny sometimes if you're a comedian, and so like I need something like light that addresses race relations and potential stalking right now as we're like making this move across the country. It was just so nice this week. I mean, we were so busy just like trying to get our shit together this week, trying to get some influencer, air quote, I hate that word, a person who creates on the internet, trying to get that stuff together this week. So it felt really good to just sit out and binge this show. And we were able to binge the whole first season within the course of like 24 hours because it was just so watchable for us.
Yeah. So basically the show ends with him confronting the police who originally tackled him.
Yes.
And the police are trying to show a, community police relations, and they want to create like this restorative circle. Turns out the cop is a real asshole and being like, you just need to apologize, and I apologize. We move on with our life.
Yeah, let's both sit down and talk about how both parties were to blame. And he's like, excuse me?
And Keith, previous Keith, because Keith used to be like, I'm one of the good blacks, right? He internalizes
like,
that.
I'm just a comic. Everything's not controversial. I just like to draw.
And he antagonizes the cop and gets arrested. And so sort of the first season ends with all these reporters, expecting Keith Knight to be a leader of like an artistic movement that will rebel against the San Francisco Police Department. And so we're very excited to watch season 2.
Yes. With that being said, Ben, why don't you warp up the show, baby?
In conclusion, if you like Dave, if you like Atlanta, if you like this TV show Happy, if you like Black Jesus, you are going to love this show. It's very light, it's thoughtful, and it's very sad because it was canceled. So there's only 2 seasons, so you can watch all of it. And that being said, Amber, what are we watching next?
Thank you so much for listening to the Sci-Fi Sci podcast. Up next for episode 105, we're going to watch season 2 of Woke. We're loving it here, and we have a lot of time to kill as we travel across the country driving, and we're going to get to hotels and just like binge the show together. So we will hope that you will binge it with us. So please please, talking too fast, bitch. Slow down. Please Be sure to watch season 1 and season 2 of Woke, and we will see y'all next week for the show. Bye, y'all.